Lineholder Reserve Designator is a monthly tool used to bid your status for the bid month. Before you start bidding in PBS, you must decide your status, lineholder or reserve. It's that simple with this tool. LRD stands for Lineholder Reserve Designator. It is used to bid for your status. You have the option to toggle between lineholder and reserve. There are 3 different statuses within the LRD tool: lineholder, reserve, and tentative. It will appear on your crew portal during the LRD bidding window. From the 3rd through the 7th of the month, you will see it on the right-hand side of your crew portal homepage. LRD happens before the bidding in PBS, and once the LRD bidding window is closed, it will no longer be on your crew portal, and you cannot change your status bid. You will see your final status on your PBS dashboard. Something very important to point out with the LRD tool is that your seniority will now be determined by your status. As you can see, the flight attendant is a lineholder, seniority number 3 out of 346 lineholders. This is a true depiction of your seniority based on your bidding status. You know exactly where you fall for the bid month. Let's discuss each status and how this may affect your bidding strategy. The first status type is lineholder. You open your crew portal and your LRD tool status reads lineholder. The default for lineholder is prefer lineholder. You have the option to click the toggle to select prefer reserve. If your status is lineholder and you kept your selection on prefer lineholder in your LRD tool, and your final status in PBS reads lineholder, you will bid 7 layers of lineholder. If your status is lineholder and you toggle to prefer reserve in your LRD tool, and your final status in PBS reads reserve, you will bid 7 layers of reserve. Next is tentative. You will only see tentative if voluntary leave of absences, or VLOAs, are offered at your base for that month. If your status is tentative, the default is prefer lineholder. You have the option to click the toggle to select prefer reserve. If your status is tentative and you kept your selection on prefer lineholder in your LRD tool, and your final status in PBS reads lineholder, you will bid 7 layers for lineholder. If your status is tentative and you toggle to prefer reserve in your LRD tool, and your final status in PBS reads reserve, you will bid 7 layers of reserve. In the instance that your status was tentative in your LRD tool and you kept your selection on prefer lineholder, and your final status in PBS reads reserve, you will bid 7 layers of lineholder and 7 layers of reserve. The last status type is reserve. The default for reserve status is prefer reserve, but you do have the option to toggle to prefer lineholder. If your status is reserve and you kept your selection on prefer reserve in your LRD tool, and your final status in PBS reads reserve, you will bid 7 layers for reserve. If your status is reserve and you toggle to prefer lineholder in your LRD tool, and your final status in PBS reads lineholder, you will bid 7 layers for lineholders. With the option to bid your status, it is important to understand the senior bump process and the reasoning behind bidding 7 layers of lineholder and 7 layers of reserve. Once the LRD tool closes, your status will be determined as follows. Lineholders will be awarded lineholders. Next, the tentative flight attendants that toggle to prefer lineholder. Next will be reserves that toggle to prefer lineholder. If there are lineholder slots still available at the base, those will be assigned in inverse seniority. This is why it is also important for the most junior flight attendant to bid 7 layers of lineholder and 7 layers of reserve as a backup in case they're subject to the senior bump process or active flight attendants go inactive for various reasons. Just know it is very important to always view your status in the LRD tool on Crew Portal. Please do not overthink this. It is just about your lineholder or reserve status.